Hello everyone, welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, listen, college football season's right around the corner. We're about to head back to school in the fall, and a lot of our kids are going to be heading back to our college campuses throughout the state. And so I thought today would be a good time to go over the laws of, can I carry a firearm when I'm on a college campus in Washington State? Well, before we get into things, just remember, if you like this video, go ahead and click that like button down below. If you want to keep apprised about your gun rights here in Washington State and nationwide, keep up to date about news and events related to that, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. Make sure you click the little bell and you'll get notified when we post new videos. So as I mentioned earlier, we're heading off to, fall's right around the corner. School season's just about ready to begin. We're heading off to college and things like that. And so let's talk about, can we even carry firearms when we're on college campuses? Now, for purposes of this video today, I recognize that there are a lot of campuses, colleges here in Washington State. However, we're going to focus on our 5 state universities today. Those are certainly the largest of the 5 campuses we have, and the ones that I can really clearly delineate because things have been codified in administrative codes and stuff. So we're going to be talking about the University of Washington, Washington State University, Central, Eastern, and Western today. So let's first talk about the University of Washington. Are firearms permitted on the campus at UW? And the answer is no, they are not. The applicable administrative code, and in the past we've always talked about RCWs, Revised Code of Washington's statutes. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about administrative codes, which are legislative laws, administrative laws that are put into place by branches of government that have the same effect as laws, but are typically not punishable by jail time and things like that. So when you hear me use the term WAC, that's an abbreviation for Washington Administrative Code. And applicable to the University of Washington is Washington Administrative Code 478-124-020, which specifically reads, possession or use of firearms, explosives, dangerous chemicals, or other dangerous weapons or instrumentalities on the university campus, except for authorized university purposes, unless prior written approval has been obtained from the university chief of police or any other person designated by the president of the university. And that is a policy, as you can see, which does not delineate between students and visitors to the campus. So I think under WAC 478-124-020, it is very clear that firearms are not permitted on the campus of the University of Washington. Now let's talk about Washington State University. 2 applicable administrative codes that I want everyone to be aware of here. The first one is 504-26213. Which states the following. No student may carry, possess, or use any firearm, explosive, including fireworks, dangerous chemical, or any dangerous weapon on university property or in university-approved housing. Airsoft guns and other items that shoot projectiles are not permitted in university-approved housing. So I think it's very clear from that particular administrative code that students are not allowed to have firearms in any way, shape, or form. But what about the alumni and the visitors to the campus there? Well, there's another WAC that I want you to be aware of, that being 50431-020. It reads as follows. Possession or use of firearms, explosives, dangerous chemicals, or other dangerous weapons or instrumentalities on the university campus is prohibited. This prohibition does not apply to possession of such items for authorized university purposes, possession of such items by authorized law enforcement officers, individuals who obtain prior written approval from the university chief of police, president, or designee, or lawful possession of firearms by a person other than a student in privately owned vehicles while on any university campus. So what we can see here is the difference between the University of Washington is they have a blanket prohibition on firearms whatsoever. Washington State University appears to have a limited exception, which is if you are otherwise, if you're a visitor to the campus and you are otherwise allowed to lawfully possess a firearm. And of course, a firearm which is loaded in the automobile would have to be held by a person who has a valid concealed pistol license. That firearm can remain secure in the automobile while you are on university property, different from the University of Washington. Okay, let's talk about Western Washington University, and the applicable administrative code for that is 516-52-020, and I'll put the links for all of these below in the description box for you. But that WAC specifically states, except for those persons identified in subsection 2 of this section under the circumstances described in subsections 3 or 4 of this section, possession of firearms, ammunition, fireworks, and explosives is prohibited on the university campus, university-owned property, and at university-sponsored events. No one may possess fireworks or explosives unless certified or licensed to do so for purposes of conducting university-authorized activities, building construction, or demolition. Now, the sections that they also referenced in here, the exceptions to this, deals with law enforcement, those that are engaged in military activities, ROTC, federal marshals, armed employees of the university. Those are the exceptions they're talking about. So it would appear when visiting the campus of Western Washington University, firearms are not permitted anywhere on the campus by anybody unless they've been designated so in this particular WAC. Okay, now let's talk about Eastern Washington University over in Cheney, and the applicable administrative code here is WAC 172.122-120. That WAC specifically states, possession, carrying, discharge, or other use of any weapon is prohibited on property owned or controlled by Eastern Washington University except as permitted in subsections 2 through 5 of this section. Example of weapons under this section include, but are not limited to, explosives, chemical weapons, shotguns, rifles, pistols, air guns, BB guns, pellet guns, longbows, hunting bows, throwing weapons, stun guns, electroshock weapons, and any item that can be used as an object of intimidation and or threat, such as a replica or look-alike weapon. And then, of course, the only exceptions that this particular WAC lays out, again, are for what we would expect: campus police, armed campus security, ROTC, military activities, and such. So Eastern Washington University has gone so far as to spell out all sorts of weapons which are prohibited on their campus. This does not apply to just students and or visitors. This applies to everybody, and it would appear that the letter of the law here is that no firearm is allowed on the campus of Eastern Washington University under any circumstance. And then let's finally talk about Central Washington University. The applicable WAC for students there is 106-125-020. Now, this applies to students. We'll get to visitors here in just a moment. That WAC, specifically subsection 16, reads as follows. Weapon violations. A weapon violation includes the possession, display, or use of any firearm, explosive, dangerous chemical, knife, or other instrument capable of inflicting serious bodily harm in circumstances that are reasonably perceived as causing alarm for the safety of any person. The term weapons violation includes any threat to use a weapon to harm any person and the use of any fake weapon or replica to cause the apprehension of harm. The term further includes the possession on university premises of any firearm or other dangerous weapon in violation of public law or university policy, but does not include the lawful possession of any personal protection spray device authorized under 9.91160 of the RCWs. So I think for students, it is very clear that the possession of a firearm on the college campus in no way, shape, or form is going to be permitted at all. But what about visitors, alumni, and such as that? Well, I had to do a little digging around, and Central Washington University does not have a WAC which is published on visitors, but they do have a very clearly delineated written policy, and I will put the link to that policy down below. It's part of their workplace violence prohibition, and that policy reads as follows. Employees and visitors may not possess, carry, or store firearms, edged weapons, martial art weapons, or blunt force weapons on university property, to include privately owned vehicles parked on university property. These items are also prohibited at university events and functions that take place off campus. Students may possess weapons only as provided in Central Washington University policies, which can be found at the Resident Hall Contract Student Handbook. And that's a whole lot of language, but what does it mean to you? What it means to you is that you cannot possess a firearm on the campus of Central Washington University, even properly secured and tucked away in your automobile, according to this particular policy. Well, I hope that answers some of the questions that you may have had about possessing firearms on some of our state's college campuses. Now, I recognize I only went through our 5 major state universities, and there is a litany of other college campuses, a lot of private universities, a lot of smaller schools throughout the state. They too will have policies. It would take probably 3 hours to do a video on all of them. But what we preach here at Washington Gun Law is to always be the lawful and responsible gun owner. So if you do intend on visiting one of our fine college campuses anywhere in the state and you do want to possess a firearm, please do the homework. If you can't figure out what the answer is, don't ever hesitate to contact us here at WashingtonGunLaw.com. You can always email me directly at william@WashingtonGunLaw.com, or you can call us at 425-765-0487. Listen, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about here all the time, is to know what the law is at all times and how it applies to you in every instance that you may find yourself in. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.